Howdy, howdy, hey! This is Edward here. Look at this, I remembered my name during the intro. I just got through watching the cutest little video of a porcupine eating while eating while eating, like chattering away while eating a pumpkin. That's what I meant to say. Wow, I better get this thing started before my ability to speak completely disintegrates. Welcome to More Geek Than Gay.
There's no need to fear. Underdog is here.
Wiggly wobbly, tiny whiny stuff.
Howdy! Okay, so I was sitting around today trying to figure out exactly what I was going to talk about for this quickie podcast because I really wanted to get one out today before we start doing the relaunch, but I want to see whether or not Joseph can join in the relaunch, which means that certain things that I can't talk about yet because I'd like to get him involved in talking about them. What do I talk about? So while I was thinking about all this, I got to talking to a world-famous author I know about licensing her stuff to games. And the whole thing about games got me to thinking, you know what? I'm going to give a little primer. That's what I will do. Now, there's going to be a little bit more at the very end of this, so stick with me even if you're not into the idea of games, but come on, who isn't into the idea of games? Games are a universal truth. Everybody likes games. If you don't like games, then there's something kind of wrong with you. That's really, I mean, either that or there's some sort of trauma and, tell Dr. Edward where it hurts. I mean, even animals like games, and robots like games, and your computer will play games with you. Okay? As I've said before, I like game systems. So, actually, let me make sure I hit play on this. Hold on. I did! And so, see, it bothers me that there's no little red light for me to know when I'm recording. So, I like game systems. Why? Because with a game system, you have the ability to play a whole bunch of different games. You didn't just buy one thing. But even then, there are things that help. I have kind of a carry-along game pack that I carry with me when I think I'm going to be playing a game. Why? Because there's a company out there that makes inexpensive games. How do they make them inexpensively? They make them inexpensively by giving you just a few parts. They don't give you dice. They don't give you pencils. They don't give you like a piece of paper or playing cards. Why? Because you probably have that somewhere. They don't give you little counters because you have pennies around your house. You have things that you can use for that stuff. They give you the things that you don't already have in your house. Because a large part of when you buy a game, a large part of the expense is buying all those parts. Otherwise, it actually just comes down to a piece of cardboard inside a large box filled with air. a lot of people, whoa, cats are not happy. Okay, a lot of people like fancy little pretty bits, and that's fine. You can do this up as nicely as you'd like. But it's always nice to have a basic set of the bits. And then you've actually freed yourself up for a whole bunch of different games. Okay, that you don't have to pay for. Okay, my basic pack is like this. This is really big for a basic pack, but remember, I'm a big game geek. So there are things in here that I have that you wouldn't have in yours. You could probably get away with a much smaller unit. This is actually 2 fishing box things that I found that you can get at Walmart. I got at Walmart. And they have this little special feature where you can slide them into each other and put them together as if they're just one unit. Okay? Now, inside this... What? Sorry, I'm watching cats try to steal something, and I don't think they even know what they're trying to steal. I think they're just being curious. But inside this, we have basic components for things. And that's the important thing to remember. Again, all you really need are the basic components. I've got a set of 5 dice. Now these are, I happen to find a set of dice for the game Kismet, which means now I can play Yahtzee, or I can play Kismet, or I can play other games that require 5 dice or less. I have these little beady things that you can get at really any Michael's or in the crafts section of a Walmart or a Kmart or some other mart. These little things, they make excellent counters in games. They also make just good game pieces. Okay, you can use these in place of like checkers if you wanted to. You could use them in place of playing Chinese checkers. That's mentioning the common games that you can come up with for these. I have them in 4 different colors. Cost me next to nothing. You also a lot of times can find these in thrift stores in little bags on the wall. I also have these little discs just because sometimes you want a different type of counter. So I also have those in 4 different colors. I happen to have them matching the colors that go with my little glass, what do you call these, melted marble things? I don't know. These I got at an educational supply store. But those are superfluous to a degree, okay? I could have gotten them anywhere. I could have just used anything as an additional counter if I needed additional counters. I happen to have miscellaneous other-sided dice. If you have games around, you've probably encountered, like, occasionally, like a 12-sided die or a 20-sided die in various games. Well, I have extras. I put them in here. There's other types of games where you just need a marker, such as, like, Clue. You're just a little peg going around the board. You're not a little person, per se. And so I made these different markers, different colors. I just took some Sculpey, made these different markers, and a color for pretty much any type of person, okay? I've got, I think I have 12 different colors here. Again, that's just me being extreme and not wanting people to fight over colors. That said, you can find anything to use for these. I did make a point, if you make them for yourself, you might want to do what I did. Put a front on them. Sometimes games like the pieces to be in the direction that they have to move. This little front helps you remember that. Okay? Now, what if I do want to do something different? Like, let's say I want to play Clue, but I want regular people. Look at this. Homies. You get these out of little vending machines at your store, towards the front of the store. Costs 50 cents. You got yourself a little person. And you now have a person to represent you going around the board. Again, that's just 50 cents for the... And you can usually find those at the front of the store. I have little score pads. These are little bridge score pads, but you can use them for anything. What's this one? What's this one? Oh, this is a specialized thing that is probably just one of my... While I love the game, it's also a case of... You've probably never heard of it. It's a great game. If you ever have a chance and you see at a used bookstore or at a thrift store a game called Word Nerd, pick it up. You'll love it. Money. Typically, you'll have like an incomplete set of Monopoly or Life or something like that that has money in it. And the money comes in handy for other games. You can use this in place on poker nights if you just want to like play for stakes, but you don't really want to play for stakes. Use these instead of chips. Let's see here. Like I said, there's other things in here that I know what they are, but they're a little bit obscure for the casual gamer. You know, the one who's just getting together with grandma. In the second board, here's where we're going to get to a couple of a little more esoteric things. But, a timer. Again, you can find these anywhere. This is a portable Mancala set. Mancala is one of the world games, if that makes sense. It's played with little beads. You sew them into little pits. There's different variations of the game. You can find the rules for all sorts of variations of Mancala online. Mancala, Owari, there's a couple of other ones. I can't think of what they're called. But, so there's that. Again, more little bead things. This time in clear. Another timer, just because sometimes you want a different set of times. Now, I also happen to have a small cribbage set, because sometimes people like to play cribbage. Now, there's no point in having a small cribbage set if you're not going to have cards. So of course you have to have a deck of cards with you. Everybody should have a deck of cards. If you get a chance, I recommend getting... Do I have mine in here? Oh, I think they're on the other side. There is a company called Kem. K-E-M. They make playing cards. They also make pinochle cards. Make sure you're careful about which ones you're picking up, which are playing cards too, but you want just regular... I think they call it their bridge cards. It'll be two decks, 54 cards each, 52 plus 2 jokers for each deck. The nice thing about Chem cards is that they're plastic cards. They're not plastic coated, they are plastic cards. Therefore they take a lot more beating than a regular playing card does. They're not the cheapest cards, but sometimes if you're at a thrift store or again at some type of used bookstores, you will find them on the shelves for like $1 or $2. Anytime I see, even though I already have my sets of Chem cards, anytime I see them, I pick them up. They make great presents for people. You can send them overseas to, like, if you know someone who's in the army. They make great presents for those in the military because, again, these are hard to destroy cards. Now, let's see here. Other weird little esoteric playing pieces. Fish, just in case for some reason we decide, hey, you know what? Fish would make good playing pieces. Now, the other day, was it the episode before this or the episode before that? I don't know. I mentioned a game called Ice House. It's played with little pyramids. The interesting thing is a lot of the games there don't actually rely on the pyramid structure. They just use the fact that there's different shapes with different values. Okay? There's big, small, big, middle, small. So, and some of them actually play better if they had small pieces. So what I did is I made a set of small, flat ice house pieces. You can go to the website for Looney Labs. You'll see how they're set up. What I did is I made, on one side, it indicates what size pyramid and the point value. Tall ones are 3, middle sized ones are 2, and do I have a small one here? Oh, small ones are 1. Okay, this indicates it laying on its side, indicating it standing straight up. Again, small, middle size, large. And for those that aren't using the stacking principle of the pieces, these are perfectly fine, which means you'll be able to play 75% of the games that they have there. I do recommend getting them. There's a lot of great games that they have that do use the stacking ability, and therefore with these pieces you are missing out on that. But you do have the chance of playing those other games. Now, here's where we're going to get to a little bit obscure. First of all, if you find an old beat up Scrabble game where the board doesn't really work anymore, go ahead and take the tiles. I happened to find a game that had a whole bunch of different lettered tiles, and I made sure that I made a set that matched what was in Scrabble. You can print off a Scrabble scoreboard from many different sites. Okay, the Scrabble score sheet shows all the spaces, so you can play your tiles, write them down here, and you can even keep track of it on the flip side. So all you need are the tiles and these score sheets. Okay, not saying this is going to be the prettiest version of the game, but it's effective. You can take it on picnics, parties, camping. If you get if you ever run into it, this is the best way of putting it. If you ever run into a board game called Sly, pick it up. It is a great little system of games. I happen to have Sly, but I happen to have, like I said, an extra one. So I think one of mine somehow ended up with 2 sets of rules in it. So that's because I have an extra set of rules that I keep with these. And I made makeshift little pieces to match the game. If you can't find it, it's a little too complicated to explain right here. But I do highly recommend it if you find it. Or if you find the rules for Sly online, you'll be able to see what the breakdown of the pieces are. Make yourself a set of these pieces and the board. Okay? There's another game that kind of went with it called Realm. So you can look for Realm or Sly. Look for those. You'll have a family of games to play. Now, as far as the board goes, Sly used a kind of a specific board that was made up of 3 sets of 9 square pieces. Okay, kind of like a big Sudoku board. There is another game system out there called Piece Pack. It is free. You can print out a piece pack from online, and no one's gonna make you pay for it ever. There's a whole bunch of games that are made for Piece Pack. I made my own Piece Pack set, and they typically have symbols like you can get one that has diamonds, clubs, hearts, all that. The Piece Pack involves tiles. Okay, it's going to be, I think 4 tiles of each color. Or 6 tiles, I take that back. 6 tiles. There's tiles. There's dice. There are little plain pieces, little plain tokens, and I believe there's cards. With all those pieces, they have a whole big library of games you can play. Now, the tiles typically are more like this. They'll have a value on it, and mine are colored and checked, again for a reason, but they'll have just a color on it, a value, the symbol, and then the flip side will have a checkboard. I did it on both sides because it lends itself to a greater variety of games. You could also just make a 9x9 board out of those tiles while you're making those tiles, actually. Make it the same sizes so that the lines line up, so you can play around with making your own game if you wanted to, or you now have the board to play Sly or Realm, because you can just lay this down into, because that's another thing. It's a 9x9. It's 3 rows and 3 columns of 9x9 with a special space in the center. Well, you now have it, and you can travel around with it. Again, cheap and easy. I made these out of foam that I bought at Walmart? I believe Walmart. Now, this is actually a basic set. You'd be amazed at how many games you can play just with these pieces. And a lot of this stuff is easily accessible. Okay, most of it that I mentioned here is public domain. Ice House isn't necessarily public domain. I bought a set. I made my own set to go with. I do recommend you buy your own set. Okay, I just made a complimentary set to play other games in a slightly more convenient manner. Okay. Sly, it's proprietary, but no one makes it anymore. So just make your own set. Peace Pack it's kind of proprietary, but no one's going to charge you for it. It's up for mass consumption. Again, I think the website is peacepack.com. So the other thing that you need that I haven't touched on is boards. There's many ways you can get boards. You could just collect, it's easy to find like a dilapidated checkers board or chessboard somewhere. Those folding cardboard ones. Usually you can find them at a thrift store. Take that with you. I like a little bit more convenience. I happen to get a checkerboard bandana, which means I can just fold it up and take it with me. I think you can still get these on websites sometimes, a little bit harder to find. Or you can sometimes find books that have different boards printed in them. Okay, Sid Saxon published something through Klutz, the Klutz game system, juggling for the complete Klutz, harmonica for the Klutz. I think it's called the Board Game Book, and each page has a different board game on it. I have another one that I usually take with me, but after Thanksgiving we misplaced it because I took it with me to the house at Thanksgiving to Joseph's grandparents, to Joseph's mother's house, and I have no idea where it's at. But I have this one. Big book of board games, and it's just an old coloring book, actually. In the late 70s, early 80s, there was a couple companies that put out a whole bunch of coloring books. That's when doodle art was big, and you could doodle your own felt paintings. And this has a whole bunch of different board games in it, so that I can just play off these pages. And you also have the ability to like color them. You could probably Xerox these, make your own to give to the kids to color. You can color them yourself if you want to. I mean, some of them are quite elaborate, like this Pachisi one. And then you'll have the boards, and with a chess or checkers board plus this book, I got pretty much every board I need. That's how you go to get around a lot of these things. Now, what are you going to do? Go online, look up free games. You'll be amazed to find out how many games you can play with the pieces that you set aside here. And you can put this all together for maybe about $20, $30 at the most. Okay, get a deck of cards from like a dollar store. Get some dice from a dollar store. You can get some felt to make the boards if you want to. Get yourself some of those pieces, those just little glass pieces. I think you can get those a lot of times at dollar stores too. So now we've gone up to maybe like $6, $7. Get yourself some pencils, pads of paper. We haven't left the dollar store yet. Get yourself, let's see, what else here? Get yourself a little cribbage board. That one might take a little bit of hunting down, but it typically only costs about, at the most, $5 to get those miniature cribbage boards. And you'll be amazed to see there's a lot of games that you can use that cribbage board just to keep score with also. Because that's really what a cribbage board is. It's just there to keep score. You don't need it in order to play cribbage. Then make yourself the boards. If you decide to use foam or felt to make the boards, and then get yourself maybe some Sculpey to make some pieces. The foam will be, I think it's less than $1 a sheet. And then the Sculpey costs maybe, I think it's about $2 per color. But you can get white Sculpey for about $6. A block of white Sculpey, just make the pieces you want and paint them. Sculpey paints really nicely. I've put this whole thing together now in my head for about maybe $15. You go online, you find yourself websites for just free classic board games. The rules for chess, checkers. You can find games. There's Hoyle, there's Scarn. There's many books that will teach you that will give you the rules for basic board games. And usually they also give you rules for the variations, such as checkers, international checkers, far jumping checkers, things like that. Also, you can go online, like if you decide to make yourself a Sly set, go online, look for the rules for Sly or Realm. There they are. If you decide to make yourself a piece pack set, which is an incredibly useful set, because you can make almost any basic board game board out of those pieces. Go to Piece Pack, just do a Google search for Piece Pack. You will see hundreds of games for that, and they divide it up into different categories. Same thing with Ice House. Again, the stacking property is really nice, so I do recommend you get yourself a set. But you can also make a generic set. They have boards that you can make, that you can buy from them, but you can make those boards just as easily. And most of their games don't require boards. Okay, most of their games you'll be fine just playing it on a table. You go to loonylabs.com, type that in. They have rules for, like, I think about 16 different games there. and a link to a group of people who really like those pieces that have made hundreds of other games. Then there is the company that inspired me putting this all together here. It is a company called Cheap Ass Games. They're the ones that give you just the bits that you don't have laying around your house. Used to be that you could go buy like just a little envelope that had, you know, the rules, any special cards you need, if there's a special playing board, okay. It had those things in it, and then you just provided your own dice. It cost like maybe usually between $3 to $6 for a game. And if you've ever gone out and priced board games recently, you know that that's pretty darn cheap. Now they've gone on to a different system, which works out better for you. They do still have some games that you can buy a little bit pricier. They've made them with fancy bits and stuff. But if you click on the page, if you go to the website for Cheap Ass Games, and you click on the site that says games, they have a whole bunch of PDFs, I think they're PDFs, of their old games. They're now giving them away, and you just pay them what you think it's worth. Devil Bunny Needs a Ham is a fun little game that you can just toss around for like a couple games. It's not deep, it's not long, it's a fun little filler game. It costs $3. If you like it, just give them $3. If you don't think it's worth $3, well, you got yourself a free game. And some of these are games that they put out here for free originally. You can print off their award-winning game, Kill Dr. Lucky, which is basically Clue before Clue starts. So instead of trying to figure out who killed the body, Mr. Body, you're the one going around trying to kill Mr. Body and not have anyone see you so that no one knows who killed him. Just like Clue, starts off a little slow, but once it gets going and more attempts are made on his life, the game becomes a lot of fun. And there are various rules that you can put, so like you can try to kill his little dog too. They have a whole bunch of games there that you can just download, print off, play, and if you have your little set, you got yourself an evening's entertainment. This is one of the things I like, just making yourself a basic game set. Oh, and they also, if you don't have a spare Monopoly board laying around your house, or a spare Monopoly set that's just falling apart, they do have you can print off cheap ass money, so you'll have money to use in your games if you need to. It's the perfect solution. And with all this, you now have at your fingertips hundreds if not thousands of games, and it all costs you about maybe 20 cents or $20, maybe a little bit more. Especially depends on how you print off some of these things. So, especially with the holidays coming up, you're going to be spending all your money on like food and traveling and gifts for people. Let's see if we can make entertaining, fun, yet affordable, and this is a quick and easy way to do it. You'll have a variety of games, and it's really, really cheap. Ta-da! So that is my breakdown of how to build yourself a simple yet if incredibly large game library. And see, that's something that Joseph wouldn't really know much about, because I'm the one who's the big game geek. He enjoys games, but not like this, okay? Very few people do this. Even I know a whole bunch of people who are like, oh, we have board games, we have board game night every Wednesday. They didn't think to set aside a set of basic tools for any game. And that's a really important thing to have, is a set of basic tools. If you have a poker set, all the better. You now have chips, cards. And a lot of times they have scorecards in there too, score pads, even though this isn't bridge, it's poker, but that's fine. A basic chess set, because you notice there was no chess pieces here. You can get chess pieces again at a thrift store, no problem. And you've got yourself made. You got it made right there. Now, something else popped in my head and I cannot recall what it was, so I will ignore that and just move on to, hey, guess what today is? Well, actually, I guess by now what yesterday was. It was International AIDS Day. Now, AIDS is a worldwide pandemic. People still die of it every day. It has gone on longer than the bubonic plague did, or like scarlet fever, or the Spanish flu. It's still with us. Those things, you hear how devastating those were? They were only around for a few years. AIDS has been around now for, what? If we take the moment of its being identified as HIV/AIDS, then we're looking at least 30 years, if not, I think, 40, coming to 40. And they do think that its origins have spread much earlier than what we originally thought. When a person is diagnosed, a person gets HIV. Okay, first of all, when you get it, you get HIV. Okay, that is actually exposure to a virus, the HIV virus, human immunodeficiency virus. You get it through blood, breast milk, semen, or vaginal fluids. Yeah, I used to have to tell people that all the time, in Spanish too, because I used to work as an HIV counselor. HIV doesn't kill. HIV, if given a chance, it attacks your immune system. It's a retrovirus, which means that, in the most simplistic terms, it basically starts rewriting the DNA code in your system, which is part of what makes it so difficult to kill. Okay, the flu is not a retrovirus. It's not rewriting things. It's just plugging into cells that you already have and making you sick. Where HIV is a retrovirus, it is actively trying to replicate itself into every cell you have. And this virus basically lowers your immune system. It does attack your body. It lowers your immune system, and then you'll catch something that will give you that's what you're going to die from. Not the HIV. You're going to die from pneumonia. That's a common one, or at least it used to be common. Normally, people have there's a specific cell count referred to as a T cell. They have in excess of a 500 count. Okay, that's considered normal. If you're below 500, that's low. If you go below 200, you're automatically diagnosed as having AIDS. AIDS is a more severe form of it. It basically means that you're no longer just carrying the virus. Your immune system has been actively compromised. You now are in jeopardy of some sort of infection. When I was finally diagnosed and had a count done, my count was 36. I basically started out HIV with AIDS. The term wasn't used on me. I was healthy as a horse. I mainly stay healthy as a horse, knock on wood. But it didn't really come up until years later when, again, going through paperwork, they realized, oh, your count was 36, so you had AIDS. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's unpleasant to actually hear that word used with me. There's also opportunistic infections, such as pneumonia that killed Freddie Mercury. That was a certain type of pneumonia. It's not common for people to get it. It's a devastating pneumonia, but the human body typically rejects it and fights it off. It takes a compromised immune system to get it. I got it. If you get one of those opportunistic infections, even if your T cell count is in the healthy range, you automatically are considered, if you're HIV positive and you have an opportunistic infection, you are considered to have AIDS. This was a moot point for me because at the time that this happened, my T cell count was 9 or 10. I counted on fingers. In between, I was on medication. Everything was fine. My insurance ran out. I ran out of meds. I ran out of meds for about a year or so, and then eventually I got sick. I got better again. Got back on my meds. Everything was fine. But T cell count of 10, you should never have, more digits on your body than you do T cells. It is a serious disease. I'm again back to basically being healthy as a horse, but I do have to constantly be concerned about my insurance. And these are things that people have to consider. There are people who are not diagnosed who need to be tested. If you're tested and you get on your medication, you should live to be, basically a natural lifespan. Once your viral load drops down to a certain point, you're considered undetectable. Although I do believe they use a different terminology now because they kind of can detect it still. But at that low a point, many studies have shown that you are at less risk of giving someone the virus. Okay, you are considered all but safe. That's not all studies. There are many studies that say that as hooey, always practice safe sex. Another little interesting tidbit for those of you who would like to know is that once you are diagnosed as having AIDS, even when you get rid of the opportunistic infection, you no longer have pneumonia. Even if you get your viral or your T cell count back up to 500, you are always considered AIDS, not HIV anymore. You have progressed to actually having AIDS, not just having been exposed to the HIV virus. That said, if you have a chance, look into seeing if there's anything you can do in your community to help out. Okay, and maybe you think I'm being a little too personal with mine. Maybe you think HIV, AIDS. Okay, fine. Go look into cancer. Go look into diabetes. There are plenty of diseases out there that kill people that you can help. Help people survive in better qualities. That said, I'm going to again say, if you have any time, any spare money, anything like that, please do get in touch with the Joshua Tree Feeding Program. It is a feeding program here in Phoenix that provides food for people with HIV and AIDS. They're entirely volunteer, so any assistance you can give them, if it's food, if it's time, if it's money, if there's an event coming up and you could possibly offer up decorations, or sometimes they do raffles, and if you have access to it, providing them with something that would be a good prize to auction off or something, get in touch with them. That's www.jtfp.org. Any assistance will be greatly appreciated. And that, I believe, for now, will do it. I don't think this was like the all, woo, giggles and grins episode. A lot of dry instructional material over games, putting together your own game kit, and then me talking about AIDS and HIV. Wow, okay. But it's just a topic that I think is really useful to have around the house. If you have family, friends coming over, stuff like that, a game kit is a great idea. And then 2, it is a pandemic. It is killing people every day. And it's been around for way too long now. So I had to weigh in with my 2 cents. We are planning the relaunch for Tuesday. It may take until Wednesday for it to get posted. My birthday is Tuesday, so I don't know whether or not it'll get actually posted on Tuesday or if it'll have to wait until Wednesday to get posted. Sorry about that. I just got to thinking about that today. But I want to thank everybody for sticking around. Stewie Monster Fan, I just now realized where your messages are because I thought you were missing, and you're not. You're there. So, hey, thank you. And everybody else, please feel free to leave comments. Tell your friends about us. If you find us on iTunes and you like us, give us a 5-star review. It really helps things out. And until next time, this is me. I don't have a close. I don't have anything to say as a closing. That's so sad. Okay, I'll also take suggestions for how to wrap up the show. A nice closing statement, like a nice bon mot for a close. So until then, either Tuesday or Wednesday, this is me saying toodles.